You always ask me if I read the comments. Of course I read the comments. Some of them are really good, some of them are, well, really bad, and then some of them are totally AWOL. Let's go ahead and go through your comments, and always be sure to leave comments in the videos so that I know what your thoughts are on the different topics that I cover. Let's get started. Norton states, brush your teeth right away after taking apple cider vinegar. It's super bad for your teeth. You know, a lot of people say this, and it's really interesting because I've never seen anybody that follows the recommendations that I give them of drinking, 1 to 2 or maybe even 3 to 4 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar throughout the day have a problem with their teeth. Now, if you're shooting it, if you're guzzling apple cider vinegar, I'm sure this could lead to some problems with the enamel on your teeth. However, if you're using it in moderation, then you're gonna be just fine. Now, there are people out there who just have enamel problems or teeth problems in general, and maybe that would be a reason to stay away from it. But this idea that you should never touch apple cider vinegar because it's just going to destroy your teeth is not true. Now, the next thing here is Thomas says, you can have normal blood sugar and still be in a lot of trouble. Your body could be producing way too much insulin to maintain 80 to 100, which would be like a normal blood sugar. Blood sugar is not the best indicator. Check your insulin levels. A lot of people that hear about a particular lab marker, they tend to cling on to it. And they're like, that is the end all be all. The fact is that there's many different lab markers that can give a good indicator as to what your metabolism is doing. Just a simple at-home blood sugar test is phenomenal because it gives you in real time what's going on with your blood sugar very inexpensively in the comfort of your home. So that's a great test. Another great test is an A1C because it gives you kind of a historical roadmap as to what's been happening with your blood sugar over the past couple months. Insulin is also great because it can tell you if you're producing a ton of insulin because you are trying to just shove that blood sugar down because there's a metabolic problem in your body. So all the tests are good. The idea that one is the best and the other ones are useless is totally false. So we have to make sure that we understand the big picture, the big concept, and don't ever disregard any particular marker that could improve our health. Jordan says, okay, you also need to learn about plant toxins and anti-nutrients found in plants. Plants don't like to be eaten. I would assume that probably nothing likes to be eaten if I had to guess. We're not designed to eat roots, leaves, stems of plants. We are carnivores. Well, you're not going to convince me that we shouldn't eat any green leafy vegetables or anything like that because, they have a lot of benefit to us. Now, some people will react poorly to different foods, and there's a lot of different diets out there. So we have to understand that, there's a lot of diets and everybody will be good on slight variations. But we can't just follow a particular diet and say, well, this is the proper diet for everybody. Just because you're following the vegan diet, it doesn't mean that's the right one for everyone. If you do really good as a carnivore because you have a whole bunch of autoimmune issues, that's great, but that doesn't mean that's the diet that everybody should follow. I hang my hat on a low carb diet. That's my big diet that I push, that I eat personally, use with my patients. It's the diet I like. I think it's very sustainable, but completely plant-free diet for no reason. I don't see that that's going to be a mainstream thing that's going to benefit a lot of people. Hot Wheels 66 says, Dr. Nick is ripped. Why, thank you. I appreciate that. Elena says, humans are suckers. Can you believe this? Humans are suckers. Let's see why humans are suckers. Now that everyone fell for the antimicrobial soaps, shampoos, wipes, let's fall for the probiotic products. Oil salesmen have always been around. I assume that I'm the oil salesman in this case. And what I was recommending is that people use a probiotic lotion because the FDA and other research has shown that using a whole bunch of antimicrobials is really bad for our body. It just crushes our microbiome. We have these good healthy probiotics that live on our skin and all over our body, in our body, and they are responsible for a lot of really important things in our body, like our brain health, our gut health, our hormonal health, everything really. When I have watched people over the past 6 months to a year just douse themselves with antimicrobials, I think it's highly dangerous, and I'm pointing that out, and that's based on the research. So I'm being called an oil salesman for this, but I recommend using probiotic infused lotions and also taking probiotics and also cutting the antibacterials down as much as you can. Brahm, let's just go with Brahm. Urine therapy has been and is used in India more than all other countries combined. There are hundreds of scientific studies on the benefits of urine therapy. Most are not in Armstrong's book. There are over 100 videos on YouTube. Most are positive. If you're not familiar with what urine therapy is basically when you drink your own urine in order to improve your health. Now, I don't think I'm going to be participating in that health regimen anytime soon. However, if that's the right thing for you, you do you, but it became really popular on the internet probably about a year ago. I actually did a video on this topic because I found it very interesting. When I saw it kind of just going around and it was just really wild. There was a couple big YouTube educators and also, let's just say, influencers that did some content around that. And so I had to see what it was all about. I did a video on it, but no, I will not be subscribing to the drink your own urine to improve your health bandwagon anytime soon. Masanto says, what kind of doctor gets time to write all this nonsense on YouTube? Ouch. Ouch, that's a harsh one. You know, a doctor who has 4 kids and a clinic and is very busy and nothing to do in the world. You know, so much time on my hands, I just sit here and write apparently nonsense on YouTube. Well, I'm gonna assume that they didn't like my content and it's all right. Yeah, you just do what you gotta do. You know, maybe this natural health stuff is just all a bunch of bogus anyway. Ahmed says, hello, thanks for the video. I have a question. Is there a problem if I'm getting my 1 meal a day before bed? Because this is the time I'm comfortable with because of my work schedule. You know, a lot of people ask me all the time, when's the best time to have your 1 meal a day? If you have a busy work schedule and stuff, you just have to do what works best for you. I'm never a fan of eating directly before bed, especially this big, enormous meal. It's not particularly good. It causes digestive discomfort sometimes. It can cause people not to sleep well. I'm a big fan of stopping the eating about like 3 to 4 hours before bed. However, if this is all you can do, then I understand. And if you're doing fine with it, then go for it. I mean, personally, I get home really late from work sometimes and I don't get to eat before like an hour more before bed. You know, sometimes we just have to do what we can do. And if you're not having negative reactions from it, then, go for it. Janet says, please ditch the background music. Janet, what more do you want from me? These are already free videos and you're complaining about the edits. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know. Mr. 420 says, Doc, if we are not recommended to drink milk for our calcium and vitamin D daily needs, then what is the best substitution for that? Because I don't want to have weak and fragile bones when I'm old later. So I had said that the dairy industry has basically been promoting forever that milk is a great source of calcium and vitamin D. And I believe that it's a terrible source for calcium and vitamin D. A good source of vitamin D is, of course, letting the sunlight hit your skin and eating some good fish that has vitamin D in it. And a good source of calcium would even be something like drinking almond milk over dairy milk. It has way more calcium in it. Like I said, the dairy industry is very powerful, and I'm not anti-milk, I'm not anti-dairy products. However, I think it's always important to have an honest conversation. A lot of people have vitamin D issues because they're not going outside enough. They're working indoors, they're spending a lot of time indoors, and then when they go outside, the big medical industry has them so scared of getting skin cancer, they just cover themselves with the sun blocker, and then from there, they never get any vitamin D. So getting out in the sun at least 30 minutes a day, having that sun hit your skin is a very good thing. Sam says, thank you very much. Is monk fruit sugar okay to use instead of stevia? Okay, so not to like split hairs here, but monk fruit technically isn't sugar. And I want to point that out so you don't get confused. Monk fruit is considered a sweetener. It tastes sweet, but it does not have the same physiological response as sugar does. So monk fruit can be used instead of stevia, absolutely. They're both great sources of a sweetener. The next question is apple cider vinegar drink good for eliminating chronic acid reflux? In fact, it is. It helps quite a bit. 2 to 4 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar can really help reduce or even completely reverse chronic acid reflux. Kim says, I am doing alternate day fasting and keto. I'm about 80 pounds overweight and my health and metabolism has really suffered from years of yo-yo dieting. I fast for 40 hours. Okay, so you're fasting for 40 hours. I eat for 6 to 8 hours, and then I fast again for 40 hours. So here's how I look at the situation with Kim. Kim has stated that she's been yo-yo dieting all her life, And so that means that she's probably went onto really strict diets that were unsustainable, and then she just totally fell off the bandwagon. And I'm not pointing fingers here because this is a problem a lot of people have. I work with a lot of patients that have had this issue. Kim tends to jump into extremes, if I had to guess. You know, she just is attracted to these extremes and goes into them full force. I like what you're doing using keto, because that's a little bit more of a sustainable diet system. And I like what you're doing with intermittent fasting. However, I think you're jumping into an extreme with these. You have to be very careful, Kim, because you don't want to go extreme with keto, and you also don't want to go extreme with your fasting. I think what you're doing is creating a very unsustainable way of living with healthy practices that you should not do. I think you should focus on exercise. I think you should focus on 16 and 8 intermittent fasting, and then of course doing keto as well, but don't set yourself up for failure. This is not a sustainable practice and I don't recommend it. Lillian says, there are no good grains. Avoid them like the plague. It causes rheumatoid arthritis, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, MS, and you name it. There's a lot of truth to this, absolute truth to this, but once again, we have to just have an honest conversation. And I think that if somebody's gonna have some sourdough bread, if they're gonna have some organic, whole wheat, stone ground, something or another, I don't think that's the end of the world. And if they're gonna have that in low amounts and also in moderation, I think that's not the end of the world. Now, if you're eating, 300, 400 grams of carbohydrates, all in bleached white flour and all these, GMO grains like most people are doing, obviously that's horrible. But if you're just eating things in moderation and you're making sure that you're not overdoing it, I think you're gonna be just fine. And also making good choices. However, in general, grains aren't great for you, but you can just be careful with them. Philip says, avocado is a fruit. Yes, Philip, that is correct. Even though it acts like a vegetable and it looks like a vegetable, it is actually a fruit, so good call. Jane says, great tips. Your videos have helped me lose 40 pounds since July of this year. Much thanks. Congrats, Jane, because that's awesome. And the reason that I have to basically throw this back at Jane and say congrats for your hard work is because you can get all the information in the world, right? I mean, if we just think about weight loss in general, there's thousands of hours worth of information out there, or thousands, millions, billions of hours worth of information that could be read about weight loss. However, many people struggle with obesity. So a big part of this is taking action. Jane took action. Good job. Linda, my daughter's friend today took a rapid COVID test. It lit up positive immediately, and then it turned negative. Surprise, surprise. They refused to repeat the rapid test. She has to quarantine until the test was sent away and comes back. So this is a big problem, and this was in response to one of the COVID videos I did, because my big thing from the very beginning with all this COVID stuff is we have to have intellectually based conversations and honest conversations. And when we look at the test, the problem is that we're looking at a test that was never designed to actually test for COVID. They're just using a test that is showing viral particles in the body. The other problem with the test is that it's highly inaccurate. There's tons of false positives, tons of false negatives, and people are getting these tests and then they're staying home from work, or they're closing down their business and they're not going around their family because they think they have COVID when in fact they're asymptomatic, and these tests are, like I said, highly inaccurate. And the other problem with the test, when we look at them, it's like trying to grade a test without an answer key. I mean, they're just not designed for this. There's the antigen test and there's the PCR test. Big problems there. Everybody knows it's a problem, but nobody wants to talk about it. Most people just want to stick their head in the sand and act like it doesn't exist for some reason. I don't know. Anthony, I can never go over a 48-hour fast because I simply cannot sleep one bit when I'm fasted. I'm basically staying up for 48 hours. If you're somebody who's fasting and it's giving you a problem with your sleep, then what you have to look at doing is fixing the root cause of the problem. I've seen many people have this issue, and it's typically people who are very stressed out. They have a chronic fatigue issue, they have an adrenal fatigue issue in the body, and when you have this just neurological stress in the body, adding fasting to it in many cases just causes more problems for you. So what I recommend is basically offering that neurological stress support and taking things like a good broad spectrum B vitamin, using things like adaptogenic herbs, and basically boosting up on those in order to help with this problem. this can happen to people with one meal a day. It's happened to myself before. So you just have to make sure that you're not overdoing it on the stress, because it will mess up your sleep. Some people can't sleep at all, and some people will wake up for like 3 to 4 hours. They'll be like, man, ever since I started doing one meal a day, I'm awake every night for like 2 hours, and it's super frustrating. So be aware of that. Ange says, you're a legend, bro. Love the honesty. And that's actually over my coronavirus videos that I've done. Some people, I've been pretty outspoken on the whole COVID thing, because as I said, most people aren't following the research. Most people are just following emotions. And so, you know, I appreciate you saying that, because I've taken enormous flack for just being honest, like literally reviewing research on the topic, and people are going like, that's not right, that's false. Well, it's the research. I didn't come up with it. Javier says, my girlfriend has a 13-year-old son. He drinks sparkling water, sometimes 3 in one day. Is that bad for him? You know, like I said, everything in moderation. You know, there is a conversation of drinking things that are carbonated can actually have an impact on the teeth if you're drinking enormous amounts of it. Sparkling water in general hasn't been proven to be bad for anybody. It's just one of those things where you don't want to overdo it, because I'm sure it can be bad. And in fact, if you do overdo it, a lot of times it can cause a lot of digestive distress. So watch out for that. Juan says, ancestrally appropriate diets are important. Humans had always sought out fatty fish, fatty meats. If we look at old restaurant menus from around the world, chronic diseases were very low to non-existence during those times. This is true. I mean, it is true. A high-fat diet is something that has proven to be very good for many people. There's a rare portion of the population out there that have some different genetic variances that can cause them to have bad reactions on a high-fat diet, but for the most part, it is good for people. And it's our major health organizations that told everybody to stay away from fat, which caused, you know, severe consequences in people's health, because they took the fat out of the food, which tasted really good, and they filled it full of sugar. Once again, we have to always be an advocate for our own health. We have to understand these different ideas, and we have to understand these different organizations are not always promoting what's in our best interest for our health, but maybe some sort of propaganda, okay? Like, they should be ashamed of themselves, and they've never to this day admitted that they were wrong. I mean, they may at this point have went and used new research that says fat is good. Maybe they knew they were wrong at the time, maybe they didn't, I don't know. But at the end of the day, we have to just understand that in general, these fats are good for our body, because they're very important for our nervous system, which is made up of mostly fat, okay? We need this stuff. I mean, I'm sure that you can correlate all the Alzheimer's and dementia and a lot of these issues that people are having with the lack of fat. Now, of course, they're correlated with the overconsumption of sugar, but I'm sure with the lack of fat, it didn't help at all. Marlene says, great info. I'm coming off a 7-day water fast and would like to do low carb instead, which you stated was 100 grams of carbs or less. I hope you can do a low carb video as another option. I assume it will have a lot of similarities to keto, but not as strict. Well, the reason I don't do a ton of low carb videos is because that's the thing, is it really is the same thing as keto, except it's not as strict. So for instance, the difference between low carb and keto is if you're on the keto diet, that means you are in the state of ketosis following the ketogenic diet, maintaining the state of ketosis. A low carb diet, which most people who think they're doing keto are actually on this side, where they're doing a low carb diet. And I always refer to it as 100 grams of carbohydrates or less. It's a healthy way of eating. You're eating healthy carbohydrates in the way of like veggies and sweet potato, that kind of thing. So you're eating healthy carbohydrates, but you're, just maintaining a good, healthy, sustainable diet. A lot of people don't understand that the average person is consuming 300 to 400 grams of carbohydrates a day. So going to 100 grams or less is still a very good, healthy place to be. It's very sustainable for people to follow. It is how I eat. I like the ketogenic diet. I'll follow it, here and there. I'll recommend it for people who I know can benefit from it in the way of like weight loss or if they have insulin resistance, but I don't think it's the diet that people should follow permanently. I really like the low carb diet, and some people want to argue that you're not going to get as good of results. I've helped people reverse type 2 diabetes. I've helped people reverse serious problems across the board using a low carb diet. Ms. Hot Pink says, can type 2 diabetics do keto and intermittent fasting? Absolutely. And in fact, in order to reverse type 2 diabetes, sometimes you have to do keto and intermittent fasting. They work very well together. Now, if you're a diagnosed type 2 diabetic and you're on medication, I do recommend that you work with your doctor on it in order to reverse this. And I get it. A lot of people hate when I say that because they're like anti going to the doctor and they just think it's a one-way highway with medication. And I get that too, because that is the case in many different situations. However, if you're following the ketogenic diet, and if you're going to do intermittent fasting, and this is all new to you and you're on a diabetic type 2 medication, the problem is that you can drive your blood sugar down too low to a dangerous level. And if your doctor is not willing to work with you in helping you reverse this problem, then I recommend you fire him. Go get a new doctor. You have to be an advocate for your own health. I mean, I can't be responsible for your health, and you can't just expect somebody else to take control of your health. I tell people all the time when I work with them in the clinic, it's like, look, here's what I recommend that you do. I lay out all the facts for them, but then at the end of it, I say, look, you have to make a decision now. I mean, I'm not gonna twist anybody's arm and tell them what they have to do. However, this is the best route, and you're gonna have to take action and make decisions. I like to teach people how to be an advocate for their own health so that you know what to do day in and day out. And also, you're calling the shots, you're making the decisions. Also, if you haven't done so yet, be sure to text this number to become a Wellness Warrior. This is the brand new Wellness Warrior community where I share uncensored information that is gonna help you improve your baseline health. I share with you information on how to stay free of the flu, how to avoid getting sick altogether, how to eat properly. I give you motivation to exercise and just constantly strive for better health. And of course, with the censorship issue on the internet, I share information on there that couldn't even be put up in regards to promoting natural health. So text that number and I'll add you in. I'll see you on the other side. And until next time, watch this video right here. Who has time to prepare 6 different meals? And then who has time to sit down 6 different times and eat those 6 meals? And then the biggest problem is for someone like me is that you would be just left on the edge every time. Like, you're never full with any of those meals.